Me this morning. We're going to get started. We're right just about 10 o'clock. I actually have 10:01. So I want to get cooking. Welcome. I appreciate you joining us this morning. I have a lot of people online. The interest in what we do and how we help title companies in the industry and real estate settlements has really been accelerated over the last few weeks in this interesting and weird, crazy time in our society. So I appreciate more than ever you joining us, the opportunity to tell you how we can help. So let me get right into that. Why you're here. You're really here to learn how we can help your title company or real estate settlement practice do business in a better way. And I want you to really walk away with some important actionable items. Obviously, you're going to hear a lot about our company and what we do. So I really want to get down to it and dive right in. Let me start with introducing myself and tell you who I am for so many of you that might not know. So my name is Matt Einhaber. I always do that so that people don't fumble. People always fumble over my name, and it happens, and that's okay. I've been living with that my whole life. I've been in the title business for about 16 years, most of that time running an agency. So I started a title agency. I'm based out of Pennsylvania, but we grew that company to be in multiple states. And so I kind of grew up, quote unquote, through, in the title agency business. So I really know what the world looks like as a title agency. A couple personal things about me. I'm a single parent of a teenage daughter who's right now home doing school at home, as anyone with kids is probably in the same situation. So fortunately, she's old enough to sort of, manage that on her own while I do things like this. So I really appreciate her, as we've all seen our kids really step up, hopefully, and really, adapt to an interesting, crazy way of life. So I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of her. And usually I tell you a couple more facts about myself just to kind of intro, but I really want to dive right into the problem today, as so many of us are on, and it is such a weird time and an interesting place in our business. So let's go right into it and talk about the problem and how we help. So people use the word scalable a lot. If you're talking about a title company, we're talking about a business in general. And I use that in kind of air quotes that you can't see. Scalable. A title company is a very, very tough business to grow, quote unquote, at scale. It's tough to deliver consistent service over and over, to deliver customers great results and the same great results every single time. This business, really depends on experienced people knowing their craft. We tend to be dependent on hiring people who just know what they're doing, particularly when it comes to clearing title. We know from being in the business that there's different courthouses in every state, county, sometimes even municipality. They all have their own organizational system for reporting information, the quote unquote, what's on title, the what is it stuff, right? Public record. And since we're entitled, we know that all these places also have their own rules and practices about how and when and for how long debt's attached to real estate. So it's a very hyper local, knowledge-based business. Currently right now in the environment we're in, a choke point for many title companies is now knowing that you have 100% complete search with some public records, limited in availability. A lot of things are limited. Not everything is online. In many places they are, but not everywhere. And some places are much worse than others, of course. So, and of course, following underwriter guidelines, we see, a million emails a day coming from every underwriter about, different rules and different things that are changing, daily, sometimes even hourly, to make sure you're not at risk, recording information, et cetera. So all these places, these counties, these states, everybody has different rules about operating. So title clearance is far from simple, and it's really very hyper local. You could be an attorney or grow the experience to be known as a title expert, for your entire career, really, and only end up knowing how to clear title in a few states, or even a single state, or maybe even a single city or county. It's not a quote unquote scalable skill necessarily. In the title business, you can teach a good, smart person how to build a CD or how to build a HUD. You can find people and hire good personalities to do settlements, to do funding, recording. It's all that stuff is very teachable. The things around the settlement, the things that are customer facing are pretty teachable if you find and hire good people. But when it comes to clearing title, it's extremely hard to train and almost impossible to train quickly how to manage debts against real estate, how to clear title. It's basically relying again on people with years and years of experience in the state in which you're working that happen to live within 20 minutes of your office. Right up until this point, it's been for many companies, it's been a physical, work in the office kind of work, and that's a very small pool of people. And in case you haven't noticed, before even this pandemic, leading up through March, and now even more so, that pool of people is getting even smaller. And they've gotten much more expensive. It's gotten harder to recruit and find those people. It's also gotten way more time consuming and expensive over the past decade to deliver great service for the only thing that your clients really see and understand, which is the settlement and all the customer facing things that touch settlement. Building a CD is communicating with the lender, communicating with realtors and agents and buyers and sellers, funding, dispersing, all of this has grown to be a disproportionate amount of time and cost in running a title company. And if you've been doing this long enough, and it really hasn't been that long, frankly, you remember life before disclosure tolerances and having to, have quote engine software, which costs money, and having CD disclosures, going back and forth, 18 times for corrections on a single CD with a lender's platform, logging into different platforms for every lender. Technology has really enabled everyone to want everything right now, fast. There's way more communication now than there was years ago. And of course, it's much faster. So with everything more urgent, you actually need more people to deliver service that customers and clients are happy with, not less. The expectations, the response expectations at this point are really measured in minutes more than anything. And that's what clients see and feel and touch, is what you're doing on the settlement side of things. And of course, now it's even harder. There's even more workload involved with, being sure that your search is complete, making sure that you can record in that county, that they're accepting recording, even e-recording or manual, whatever it may be. In this, strange time where people are working sort of in a hybrid, situation. All the pressures on these settlement functions have title companies running hard, focus more on settlement functions than ever before. And it's not getting easier. It's not going to go in the direction of getting any different, easier. You still have to clear title. Don't forget that part. You still have to make sure there's no debt against the real estate and manage the risk. I mean, that's the real reason that title companies really exist. The settlement function stuff is sort of scalable, but clearing title, managing and knowing risk against real estate, debt against real estate, that's really why a title company is really truly needed. And it is a very, very important function and can't be forgotten. And that's the part that's really hard. There are no systems for this, for clearing title. Even in the largest, most sophisticated operations, and I've explored and talked to and looked at many across the board, they hire experienced people. They give them a pen and a desk. They hand them files to clear. They have some process, but they basically, they hope they know what they're doing. And the best case scenario, it's good, but different. Your client often gets a different feeling result. They don't understand title necessarily. Even realtors and mortgage people don't really truly understand what's under the hood. So they don't understand why some transactions might take longer than others when, it may not seem like it should. Your team is constantly aiming and shooting at multiple moving targets. At the same time, they're juggling fireballs. They're answering 87 emails a day about everything from when are we closing to, hey, the water company says they didn't get your payment from my closing 6 months ago. They're responding to a tennis match of emails and calls from lenders, recording documents, breaking down packages, keeping up with policies, you name it. And of course, servicing your clients who refer you business, which is truly the important part. So no wonder it can feel like it's on fire a lot of the time. Growing a title company and making money in this business, it's a hard thing to do, and it's gotten harder and harder. It can really feel exhausting. And this is all of these reasons is why TitleBox was born. Once upon a time, my old title agency had these exact challenges. Everyone had their own process. We felt like the work might have been okay, but we didn't have that much visibility, frankly, into what stage our files were in at any given time, what our people were doing, how they were doing it. You know, if you can hire experienced people and talk to 5 experienced people and say, hey, I have this issues on title, can you help me? You know, and you can give it to them, and they may all give you the right answers and know what they're doing, but they're going to treat it differently, and they're going to prioritize things differently, and they're going to come out in different order. So it might be good and right, but it's certainly going to be different. It's going to feel different for your client, for your customers. When people asked how long our turn time was, right? That's the magic question so much, you know, order to commitment, or rather order to close, right? We had no real answer because it was inconsistent. You know, we felt like clients were usually happy and we worked really hard at it. But honestly, we knew we were overworking. A lot of the time we felt like we were working at capacity, and we spent a lot of time running from brush fire to brush fire, which is a really common story with a lot of title agencies, both big and small. And now it's consistent and beautiful. Now we can hire good people that don't have to have 10 years experience buried in title, and we can turn them into consistent quality expert level much, much more quickly and produce the service and product that we want them to every time and manage risk. And we can spend most of our time doing things that directly focuses on our clients, and they feel that, which makes them happier. And of course, we get more business. How do we do this? Great question. So let's dig into it. Let's talk about that. We built all of the data and information needed to clear title so that the answer to everything was at everyone's fingertips. So let me explain that. Think of it like this, like a funnel, right? So people would come into me and say, hey, I have a question. I have this title issue I'm working, and I need some help. And I would train them to say, all right, start with the most critical information. Where is the property? What state is it in? And they say, okay, it's in Pennsylvania. I say, okay, great. What is the issue? Is it a judgment or a lien or a mortgage? Is it an estate or an entity? An HOA condo situation, a bankruptcy? What is the issue? They say, okay, well, it's a lien. I say, all right, great. What's the lien called? It's got to be indexed in the court system, in the public record. How do we identify this? And they say, well, it's called administrative adjudication. I use that as an example. It's the top of the list. It starts with A. And so we say, okay, great. Now we know some rules about this thing. We know how long it survives. We know if it attaches to just this property or all the property that the person owns. We know how to eliminate this. And we found that between 11 and 15% of the time, and we measured it pretty closely, that that issue was resolvable right then and there. And then we would dig in and find out ask the question, how long have you been working on this problem, or putting off working on this file because you knew there was an issue and you didn't want to you knew it was going to take time and you were dealing with other things. And of course that answer is never 5 minutes. It's always, an hour, a day, a week. And so we got to these actions, very, very quickly. So we built this very comprehensive database of all things, and not only the rules and then the actions. So once you determine that it can't be resolved, now you have to take an action. So what is the action? It's reaching out to someone at the municipality, or it's reaching out to a private party, or it's ordering a letter of indemnity, or it's ordering a satisfaction. There's only 3, 4, 5 things you can do in every given problem. So we created those pathways. We enacted this in our own, in our own agency at the time, and our own system, and saw a world of difference. And then we started talking to other title companies and realized we had, basically had a product. Every step is categorized. So you can systematically go from start to finish with perfect accuracy, consistency, importantly, and way, way more quickly, right? And we got very, very good at this. So this became our whole business, essentially. We started signing up title companies as clients, and we started taking on customers and clients, many of which are brands that you may have heard of, and many are brands that you haven't heard of, and many, many small and large title companies. So what we do now is 2 things. The first thing we do is this data that we talked about that I just mentioned, right? We've built that comprehensive database for you to just move faster, to be able to clear title and move faster within your own team, to have the answers, to have the ability to train consistently people that have less experience, and to work with people who have a lot more experience to get the answers quicker at your fingertips. This is simple. This is a subscription access. You pay a relatively it's quite inexpensive, frankly, and it gives you access to this incredibly comprehensive database. I'll walk through this with you briefly for a moment. Title clearance. So these are the title clearance categories, right? There's very valuable guidance on pretty much anything that could come up in a clearing, in clearing title, including the action steps, including things deep like contact information, rules, laws, things to be careful of that may or may not be on your search, right? And all the content is specific to the state, the county, the municipality. We started rolling this out in the state of Pennsylvania because that's where we started doing our testing and started building this in the beginning. We've now released it for the rest of the state. We've released it for New Jersey, and Florida and New York are just about a minute away. I'm going to dig into one or two of the features of this as well, just so you understand some of the things that are valuable and that are here. One of them is a UWAL. So the UWAL is the underwriter alert list. You probably get, if you're a title agency or in the business, you get these emails from your underwriter that say, hey, 123 Main Street, or, Joe Smith, don't insure this property without, talking to us first. So we've compiled, it's very, very difficult, practically impossible for title agents to manage that, all those, disparate emails and scrub them against any of the new orders that come in. So we've compiled these in a list, in a database, so that's very searchable, across underwriter and national. So you can run any property, any person through that and make sure that they haven't been, alerted by an underwriter in the past. So that's just a good feature, a good safe feature. Another feature is something called potholes. So potholes are basically, things that don't show up on a title search, or typically don't show up on a title search. And if you're going to go close in another area, could be another state, could be another county, or another part of your state that just behaves differently, either by law or by practice, by tradition. Sometimes it works out that way, that if you don't know, for example, these are just a few examples, if you don't know that in a certain place that utilities are owned by the municipality and act like a tax, and that you have to order, the certification basically for that in a certain way. If you don't know that, you're going to have a problem. I mean, no question, you're going to have a problem. And many places have these kind of what we call potholes. So, if you're going to close in a new area that you're not as familiar with, we'll, guide you through that, right? As obvious of a tool as TitleBox is for these multi-state title companies, potholes being one of those features you can recognize, or companies that do business in a large area. The truth is, it was really created originally with deep knowledge in mind. So knowledge goes really, really specific. Many users of TitleBox are regional and don't do business outside of their area necessarily, but using TitleBox are able to move much faster when it comes to the hardest, most time-consuming, and usually the riskiest issues. And of course, train and manage people consistently. If you or your team spends any time searching Google or your underwriter resources or personal notes that most people carry with them through their careers, or anything else to get direction or to take action or to find any contact information, or you find people asking others in the office, especially now when you're not necessarily sitting next to each other and you may not have somebody sitting next to you in the office to ask, and it moves even more slowly, you should absolutely feel how TitleBox's self-serve will make a huge difference in your business and in your life. It really will. And that's the one thing that TitleBox offers. The other thing, the second thing I mentioned, it comes in two flavors, is TitleBox Full Service, which is where we literally deliver a clear to close title for a title company. So this is real meat and potatoes here, because what happened was we started, talking to title companies about the data that we built, showing them, and at first kind of testing it and giving pieces of it away because we wanted people to test it and see how it goes. We learned something that frankly I wasn't really expecting. We talked to a lot of title companies that said, this is great, I get it, I love what you're doing. The truth is, we just want to push a button and we want title clear to close. We want to focus on the settlement functions, on all the things that touch settlement that are really, like I said before, customer facing, building CDs and talking to our lenders and realtors and clients and going to settlement and disperse, all those things that are customer facing, responding to people's, inquiries and phone calls and emails. We want to be able to focus on all that stuff and just get title clear to close. We want the stuff under the hood basically handled for us and delivered to us in a similar way to what the way search is done now, right? Back in the day, way back in the day, not that far back, title agencies used to employ searchers that worked at the courthouse. And that was an integral part of the business. And then that sort of changed and those searchers became vendors. And now, for the most part, you push a button to a company that does your search and that product is delivered. So in the same way, they wanted clearance delivered. So we use our own data among other tools, obviously, and delivery to take your search, to go from search to close, basically, search to clear to close. The key to doing this well, however, very, very important, is the way we communicate and for you to have complete visibility into your files and keep it very, very easy to use. Because you can imagine if you're getting hammered with emails back and forth about every item and everything is a conversation, that's not very efficient, and that will slow you down, not speed you up. So the way that we deliver that is incredibly important. Everything we do is visible by you in real time. I know the last thing anybody needs is another app and another, website to go to, but we've made this as absolutely super easy and user friendly, right? You can see your entire pipeline here. For example, a couple of examples of what that might look like. We grade all your files, so you can see the severity of how difficult they are to clear, which is fluid, which changes as we go through and clear them. A, B, and C, red, yellow, green, pretty universal. This view can be customized in a lot of ways. We also have a lot of insights, business intelligence insights to share from the data that we collect about things like your own client fallout or how long it takes from order to clear, right? Info that you can pass along to your clients, use to market and sell yourself, things that you probably often don't have access to or easy access to now. So at a glance, in just a few seconds, you always know exactly what's happening in a transaction, how close we are to clear, what we've done, what we haven't done, and what needs to be done. This is an example of how we express the work that we do throughout when you're ready to get to settlement. So when you go to build a CD or your HUD, there's a lot of information that came up during the clearance process that needs to be expressed to the person who's preparing to go to settlement. And so we have this checklist of everything. And there's some obvious stuff. There's going to be, obviously, there's a mortgage payoff. We're going to say, hey, pay off such and such lender, and here's the dollar amount. But, what if there's no mortgage? Or what if there's no condo or HOA in this case? If you know what you're doing, you're going to look and you're going to go, oh my gosh, I have to check to see there's nothing written here about a condo. So you're going to go through the documents, through the file, and it's going to take you time and slow you down to figure that out. So we've designed this in such a way that you can come in cold, really never having seen this file before, never having worked on it, and know exactly what happened, what you need to know. This plus obviously the lender's instructions, you can build an accurate CD or settlement statement, basically cold, right off the bat. This is an example of drilling down into a file. Again, I mentioned before what needs to be done on this transaction, what has been done, right? What needs to be done and what's been done most recently, and the grade and the status of the transaction. So when that realtor or that client calls you and says, hey, I know we were supposed to close this next month, but I have to move it up. Can you close it next week? Can you do it? And you're like, I have no idea. TitleBox is working on this clearance. You can right there on the phone while you can say, hang on for 10 seconds, and you can open this up and you can give them an intelligent answer about what's going on. And then you can add a settlement date there and have us prioritize this and move it up. So that's effectively what we do, those two things. The title clearance, full service title clearance, and where we deliver that to agencies, and our data, which we use obviously to deliver that in a really super effective way. I didn't prep you for this ahead of time, but if you have questions, this is a great time. I'm happy to answer them. There is a chat box, by the way, and let me show you how to do that. If you go to the bottom, you'll see a button that says chat, and you can hit chat. It looks a little bit different on mine than it does on yours, but that little bar at the bottom has a chat button. You can click on that. And that will allow you to type into the chat box. I put a couple things in that chat box that I'm going to share with you in a moment. One of them is a link to a direct call. And if you have questions or you have any questions to ask, by all means, please type in the chat box now, and I'll try to address any that you have. And I will share with you a couple things that I want you to walk away with. First of all, on the self-serve, on the data, I'll talk about coverage. People often ask about that. I mentioned that earlier. We opened with Pennsylvania. We included New Jersey, which has now been released. Florida and New York are coming very, very soon, days. And we're going to keep adding states now quite quickly and really increase our coverage. Now, our full service title clearance covers much more than the data that's available to the public. The data, as we release it for you to subscribe to, is a little bit behind the data that we have internally in our ability to clear title for agencies. So that we're doing in multiple states, up and down, including, Connecticut, Mass, New York, Maryland, Virginia, lots of Florida business, etc. Take this promo code. When you open up the chat box right now, a couple of things I'd love for you to walk away with. When you open the chat box, you'll see a couple of links. One of them is to plans and pricing, TitleBox.com. This is for the subscription-based content, the subscription-based data, so you can run yourself, clear title much easier and faster. And here's a promo code right here, 43WEB. 43 is today's date. No dots, no spaces. It's all lowercase. It's not case sensitive. So 43WEB is a promo code to use, which is going to give you $50 off of that. And it's only good through Monday, only for those of you on this webinar. So go ahead and by all means use that. By the way, it's also a free trial. So you'll put in payment information, you'll get $50 off, but the truth is you get 15 days completely free. So if you take it for a test drive, you have zero risk. If you're unhappy, you don't need to talk to a human. It's very easy to unsubscribe and never pay anything. So that is kind of a no-brainer for so many title agencies who've been able to really work much more effectively. And as far as full service, are delivering clear title for you in a package, you probably have questions. Most people have questions about how we deliver that, want to hear a little bit more. By the way, you're welcome to ask your questions now in the chat box. And you're also welcome to, schedule a one-on-one. In that chat box right now is that link, this link right here, the Calendly link. So you can either cut and paste this from the page that you're looking at, or you can go in the chat box and click it. It's the first link, and go ahead and schedule a one-on-one. You can just direct schedule there. It takes 2 minutes. So I'm happy to have a one-on-one with you and explain and answer any of your questions and do a demo of the actual software itself, kind of walk you through. It's a little clunky to do that now with so many people on, but I'm happy to do that one-on-one, and it won't take very long. We'll also, again, just for this webinar, we're offering you a little bit of something here. So we'll cover the cost of the first 2 transactions. We want you to have a great experience. We want you to get onboarded and really get the feel for how we work and how we deliver clear to close transactions. The first, if you order 6 transactions, we'll cover the cost of the first 2. And I say 6 just because it takes, about 5 or 6 transactions for you to really get the feel of like, okay, this is how this is getting delivered. I'm a little bit comfortable with the buttons and switches, which is super duper easy to use. But like with anything, once you get going, then you realize how much easier and how much faster you're able to move and how cost effective it is for you. We've designed the pricing for full service for our title clearance product to be econometric, meaning it's more cost effective for you to use us than it is for you to do what you're doing. And there's some of that can be easily quantified, of course, like, okay, I spend this and now I'll spend that. And some of it is just, hey, the opportunity cost of being able to spend time, being able to reply to an email or call back, a realtor client, for example, right away or quickly, or make them happy, which is what they count, right? That's how they measure you, basically. I mean, let's face it. And because you weren't busy clearing title for 3 hours, buried in some judgment, trying to fumble around and figure out who to call and contact, and scan a form and do a thing, and do the administrative work that has been intertwined with the decision-making knowledge work that title clearance people, experts, have the skill that they've developed. If you're paying experts, title clearance experts, attorneys or not, to do administrative style work, that's costing you a lot of money every time we do it. So that is it. That's what we're offering here. So I'm going to leave that with you again. Plans and pricing for the self-serve, promo code 43WEB for that, for $50 off. and then click on that link to schedule a direct time. Someone asked if our teams are familiar with REO work. We are familiar with REO work. There's probably some specific, nuts and bolts that we need to talk about that, so I can understand more about the workflow and the client base. So I would encourage you to definitely schedule a time. You see that link right above in the chat box. Click on that, schedule a one-on-one time, and I'll be happy to dig into that and talk about what that looks and feels like for specific kind of niche work like REO. I appreciate everyone's time. I hope that everyone is safe and healthy. And I know you hear that a lot from everyone, but I really mean it. I hope everyone's safe and healthy and operating in a safe, healthy way. And we're here for you and making it a lot easier for companies to operate and get things done now. Some companies are overwhelmed. I think we're kind of fortunate to be in the business where we're not completely shut down, although it's more challenging to get as much work done. And there's still a lot of deal flow in the pipelines. And so we can really help you with that. And we hope that we do. So I appreciate it. Thank you everybody for joining. I look forward to speaking with so many of you one-on-one, and please reach out with any questions or just to talk and follow up. Thank you. Have a great Friday.